There has never been a more difficult time in the economy. Millions are without a job, and yet somehow the roaring 2020s are here and now. The stock market continues to elevate to new highs practically every day, thanks to the Fed and their fiat confetti generosity. What a world we live in. Sadly, there is nowhere to hide in any currency because they're all being devalued. This is because the central banks are all playing the same game. Devalue until there's nothing left. Not good. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about the confetti currency. We're looking at what's happening here with the debt, with the expansion of the balance sheet, with the deficits, and all of the different programs that the governments are creating. We're going to have our focus on what's going on with the US, but of course, as I like to rant on, you know I'm pulling data from all corners. Now, what we are seeing here in the first part of this video is going to be an extension of what we covered yesterday. We're looking at the loans. We're talking about where this money is going because that's your tax dollars, and that ultimately means you have to pay more taxes later. Do you really think that they're going to give out money for free? Do you think that these loans are all going to be paid back? How many of these businesses will go bankrupt? How many of them will not be able to service their debt? This is a problem from the very bottom all the way to the top. So we're going to cover that right now. And then I want to talk about the Federal Reserve, of course. Then I also want to discuss what Jeffrey Gundlach had to say. I've got some quote unquote positive news to give you at the end of this. Some of the statistics have climbed higher. I wanted to give you that because on this channel, we're looking at the reality of the situation, whether it's good, whether it's bad. But I saw this, needed to show you. Let's begin. Fans of George Orwell know exactly what this quote is. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. What am I talking about exactly? Check this out. The US has granted more than 1,000 travel ban exemptions to pro athletes. This is the way it works, and I'm only using this as an example. It's the same thing with the polluting businesses. Okay, we are going to put this carbon tax on all of these businesses. You're going to pay if you pollute. But it doesn't affect the big companies. It's not going to be GE's problem because we're going to give them a waiver, and so on and so forth. That's the way this is. If you are one of the connected few, you don't have to play by the rules. Do most people know about the waivers? Do most people know about the exemptions that exist for any of the different programs and rules and regulations? Of course not. But they see the suits and ties on TV and they think that everything's being taken care of because that's what they're saying. Nobody's creating an outrage about it. There isn't that information just being put out there into the news. So they think everything is okay. But if we really dig in, we start to see the bigger picture. I just wanted to read this title before we move into the next one. The billionaires and country clubs that received small business loans from the government. There has been all kinds of different businesses and individuals that have been able to get into something that quite frankly they shouldn't have got into, they shouldn't have been eligible for, and yet they did. They also mentioned in the first point, private jet companies were among those in the list. Apparently, the Church of Scientology was also part of this, which I find a little bit strange. Among the companies getting millions in US small business loans, South Korea's biggest airline. Wait a second, what? Well, apparently, Korean Air's local office received $5 million to $10 million. That just shows you that what's happening right now is a little bit over the top. It's not just to help out Main Street. It's all about liquidity. There's so much more here that the average person doesn't see. What they look at is paycheck protection program. Hey, that sounds like it's good, so I will vote for it. Oh, the Main Street lending program? Well, of course, Main Street equals good, therefore I'm in favor of it. It's just the way it is, but unfortunately, this doesn't help the average person when it comes down to it. I will show you the actual website in just a second, but take a look. Mapping the mega loans between $1 million and $10 million made to US quote-unquote small businesses through the PPP. And here we have this directly from openthebooks.com. You could see it for yourself. You can drill down and actually click on it, get the stats that you need. This is a very good website for so many different things. They have released a lot of information that I've brought to you over the years. And of course, as always, the link will be in the description if you are interested. Okay, so the Cleveland Fed president had some interesting things to say. Activity is slowing in her region and that she sees more policy help necessary to help the economy. More policy help? Are you really serious right now? This is crazy. When I look at everything that the Federal Reserve has done, what the government has done, they have never gone this far. As you will see in the next one I show you, Jeffrey Gundlach is completely agreeing with what I have talked about, and that is the Federal Reserve has gone beyond what they are legally able to do, and unfortunately, it seems like they're going to go even further. This right here just gives them more insight as to what is really happening. I think we are seeing the same thing. We saw a reopening in May and activity started to come back pretty well over the past week or so. There's been some leveling off, and I think it's probably due to the increasing cases, not only in Ohio, but across the country. Of course, if they start to shut down everything, we're going to have the same problems. Many areas, they've started to reverse the opening, and that's going to have economic impact. We will only know, of course, as we look back in the rearview mirror, as we start to see the statistics piling up. That isn't a good sign. At this time right now here, the amount of unemployed people is at a historic level. Now, the stock market has ignored that and largely will ignore it for the foreseeable future, but that doesn't help the bottom 50%. That doesn't help a large group of people who really need help today. So this is an interview with Jeffrey Gundlach that Yahoo Finance did. It's a short one, and I suggest people watch it if you want some more depth, but I'm just give you the summary. Billionaire bond investor Jeffrey Gundlach believes that the Federal Reserve has propped up the economy with extraordinary feats of lending and bond buying that have curbed market volatility. That's not a quote here, but I'm going to show you something interesting in just a second, but may come back to haunt policymakers. What they are doing, the Federal Reserve, is the most incredible fiscal lending Fed policymakers have ever contemplated. They are doing things today they have never done before, and they are blurring the lines in between what the government is doing normally and what the Federal Reserve, the central bank, is doing. That is a big problem because they have inched closer and closer to being able to buy stocks directly. And look, they're buying the ETFs already. Those are stocks. And what he says here was quite interesting. The Fed has decided to pull all the stops to reduce market and economic volatility. What they are doing is really a bridge further than they have ever gone before. Turmoil on Wall Street was really persistent and elevated, and they kept throwing things at it to make the volatility stop. The billionaire said, joking, that when investors use the word volatility, what they really mean is down, prices going down a lot. And that's why I pointed this out earlier here, because you can see they use that word volatility, but really that's a description of prices going down. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's just messed up what we're seeing in the markets today, especially with the economy the way it is. Jeffrey Gundlach has 35 years of experience. He's talking about it in here, essentially saying that how bad it was in March of 2020 was really understated. He explains the fact that during the financial crisis, he was front and center. March 2009, the market was still functioning, okay? But in March of 2020, he was saying for certain products, there was no bid, meaning you could not sell certain assets that he was talking about. If you watch the video, it gives a better description of it, but that's how bad things became. And of course, the media didn't tell you that. The Federal Reserve came out there and said, don't worry, we're going to fix it. That's all they would focus on. The fact that you couldn't get a bid, the fact that there was no liquidity, well, that was all ignored. Further along here, it's about the interest rate risk of the 10-year treasury, and the yield to no loss is about 2.25. There's not a lot of reward there, and there's a lot of risk if the bonds get downgraded, because the yields on junk bonds are far higher today than the yields on BBB corporate. And remember, we've talked about the triple B before many times, in fact. So if they get downgraded, we know the pricing is going to suffer very significantly. This is a big problem. The Federal Reserve stepped in to buy up the fallen angels, but how much are they willing to buy? Companies seen slashing capex 12% this year, deeper than in 2009. And we can see this on many different levels. You know how many different businesses have been shutting the doors on a lot of their physical locations. They've been laying people off. They've been cutting salaries. They've been reducing the expansion of many of their different businesses. Maybe they planned to buy this company, or they were going to get into this type of business or expand in that territory, and all of that is not happening anymore. Where we can see that expansion is, for instance, with Amazon's fulfillment centers. That is certainly expanding. But when you look at the big businesses out there, a lot of them are not able to do this right now here in 2020. They're shutting down. But I guess you have no reason to worry, because as long as you buy Tesla stock, you're going to be rich. That's what the Robinhood traders are doing right here. That green line is the number of users holding the Tesla stock, and that pink line is the price. And you can see that as it's been rising, more and more people have been pouring in. The price is at such an extreme level today, and it is defying gravity, especially when you compare it to the others in the industry. Is the price justified? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a discussion. All right, GPS, you never give the good news. You're always this and that. Well, whatever. The trolls have not made it this far into the video anyway, but I wanted to give you this information because it's real, because it shows us a little bit of insight as to what's happening. I love to track what's happening with freight. This is so important to me, not just for the Money GPS, but other aspects that I need to be focused on. Take a look at this. On the positive side, 9 of the 15 of the major freight markets, freight waves tracks were positive on a week-over-week basis. This ratio has been consistently high in recent weeks. So we can see how this has been gaining. We could see the trend. It looks like it has been extremely volatile. Going into April, it had come up here on this particular statistic. It's important to look at all of this, of course, because we're going to connect the dots on what's happening with freight. We're looking at it on all levels. We can see air shipping, we could see sea shipping, we could see what's going on with the rail, the class 8 trucks, everything there. And right now, it's a very mixed bag. It's a very different picture depending on where we look. The Baltic Dry Index has increased substantially in the last month. Take a look at the level now, 1949. I pulled this chart up to go back 10 years, and you could see that clearly. It's very volatile over this period, but I'm not sure it's ever moved this quickly on the way up, just like it did on the way down. So I'm going to keep my eye on it. I'm going to give you updates on that. I'm going to end the video there. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you are supporting me, so I want to thank you for that. By clicking the like button, you help out this channel. Thank you. If you want to check me out on Instagram and Twitter, you can do so at The Money GPS. If you want to learn how to sell stuff online, you want to understand e-commerce, but you don't want to pay, well, I created a free e-course for you. There is about 7,500 people from all around the world who are in this course right now. Check it out, theamazongps.com. The financial system is complex and convoluted, but if you want to understand it very simply and yet all the depth of everything you need to know, it's in these 2 books. Check them out at the link in the description if you want the audiobook instead, themoneyGPS.com. Wait a second, hang on, don't go anywhere. Do you want to know the depth of everything that's happening with those loans? Who's got your money? Click on this video, I'll see you there.